exciting video from Gobbler Ridge Farms, and today I'm standing in front of about 300 chestnut trees that are for our new orchard. Now, I put a all-cash offer on a new piece of property back in August. I didn't close on it until March. Don't even ask me about all that. It was crazy. But I finally got closed on the property. The only issue that I have is that I had intended to get these trees in the ground back during the fall, or at minimum this spring while they were still, in their dormancy stage. But since I just got closed and I have to kind of get the land cleared and a culvert put in and all that, it's going to be towards the end of April, maybe even into the first little bit of May before I can get these trees in the ground. Now, it's not exactly the time of year I want to be planting them, but they are 3-year-old trees. They're in pots, becoming root bound, and I don't think I can keep them watered good enough and in this tight, close proximity all through another Georgia summer without completely losing them. So I'm going to make an attempt to go ahead and get them in the ground, even if it's a late spring, and then make sure that I irrigate them throughout the summer. Now, the new property has a small creek flowing through it, and if you saw my video on golf cart irrigation here at the home farm, I put in a secondary well and was pumping into buckets and taking an electric pump and going out and watering each tree. So that's somewhat labor intensive, and with 300 trees versus 60, I just don't think that I'm going to be able to do that. So, in steps YouTube, and in my video feed was the answer to what I needed. And that's where I think YouTube shines, is the things that we can learn from there, the things we can teach each other, and the experiences that we can share. Because I saw a video pop up in my news feed for a hydraulic ram pump where you can pump water without the use of electricity, just based on the energy and the water as it travels down a slope. And for every foot of elevation that it loses, it can pump water 10 feet in elevation gain. So before that video popped up in my news feed, I had no idea what a ram pump was. I'd never seen it, and I was thinking about 12-volt batteries. Do I take my generator over there? Do I dig a well with a hand auger and all? So YouTube came to my rescue with this hydraulic ram pump. Basically the water flows in here. You have a little flapper valve that spits water out, creates some pressure that shuts that off, pushes it this way. You got another little flapper valve here. It allows water to go up inside this tube here. I'm going to put a bicycle tube in there. It compresses all that air, and then it pushes the water back down, closing this valve, and out trickles your water in the output line. That's basically how it works. There are a lot of other great YouTube videos out there that go into very deep explanations on the principle behind this. And the fact that I think the first one was made in 1897 is amazing, that somebody thought this up back then without YouTube, without the internet, without Bing or Google or any of this other kind of stuff. It blows my mind. So I'm going to go ahead and make one here, start trying to use it here at the farm, see how that works. And what I'm experimenting with is that most of the time you want your supply line to be bigger than your output line, so that it has enough volume to run the pump and push it out. I have seen a channel or whatever where they have some in half-inch to half-inch, and most of the time people say that doesn't work. According to some of the videos I've seen, that will. So that's one of the things I want to find out is, will a half-inch to a half-inch pump sufficiently for what I'm doing? I'm going to kind of neck the input up to about 3/4 to make sure I'm getting enough water pressure into that. The other thing I'm experimenting around with is I have a fitting here so I can screw in a garden hose, which is 3/4 of an inch. So coming from a 1/2 inch, and I'm going to go up to a 3/4. Some people say, that won't be very efficient. It won't work or what have you. I'm going to find that out. And the other thing, I've got another piece of black pipe that I'm going to put on here that's 2 feet long. And if you have very flexible hose, the water ramming effect, the hammer effect, that flexible hose will absorb some of the energy, and it won't pump very efficiently. So I'm going to do a couple of experiments to see, if I put some black pipe on the end of this, would 2 feet be enough to take it out to not lose so much hammer? Does it need to be longer? Do I even need it at all? Will it still work without the extra cost of that? So I've got a few experiments that I want to kind of conduct and see for myself on this, but I tell you what, that's the thing. Social media, how I feel about all that kind of garbage and what people are yakking back and forth at each other and all and on. But with some of the things that we can learn on YouTube, I think that is where the quote-unquote social media type stuff really shines. So I'm going to take you along on my journey building my first ram pump and do a couple experiments on it, see if it worked. And if you have a similar situation somewhere and haven't heard about these, this to me is very cool. So I just kind of put this together to show it to you on the screen. I do not have any pipe tape in between these fittings. Definitely need to put some of that in there. So I'm going to go and put pipe fittings or the pipe tape in between all these fittings. Don't want to bore you with all that. So I'm going to go put that in, and then we'll get back and talk about a couple of little features, and we'll go start seeing if we can crank this puppy up. All right, let's go see what happens. Okay, just continue wrapping all the other pieces until you're done. But I want to give you a couple of tips and tricks. I'll go over some of them again at the overview at the end of this part. But with the Teflon tape, what you want to do is wrap that from the top, not the bottom. And what that does, it'll maintain tension on your tape. It helps you tear it at the end, and it helps you get a tighter wrap. If you wrap from the bottom, it'll spool off more tape than you really need, and it'll get real loose, and you'll be fighting that. And so just wrap in this direction that you see me going here. I'm going to hold it up here a little bit better for you. See what I'm talking about? I'm wrapping basically on the outside of the spool of tape. If you wrap from the inside, it seems to spool off more than you need. So a little trick to save you some frustration. And then at the end, it's a lot easier to tear off there. Now, the union here, where it comes apart, you'll see there's the male side and the female side. Now, the male side, I'm going to put that down towards all the working mechanisms of the pump. That way, if I'm actually down in the creek and I have to undo this union,
all that center part will pull out, if I get a fish or a twig or a leaf in there or whatever. And so I always point that part of the union to the inside, and I do that on both unions. Now you also notice I'm putting a ball valve on the supply side. I also have a ball valve on the opposite side, and what this does, it allows me to shut this off, and that way I don't get sprayed if I'm taking the pump in and out, or I don't lose the prime if I do it on the other end. Alright, there's the finished pump. Now here's a JPEG. You can pause it right here if you want to take a look and get a list of all the parts and things right there and take a better look. So, alright, now as far as using the PVC cement on some of the places where I needed to do that, such as the air chamber, I've got a kit here, primer as well as the glue. I do have some things that have primer and glue in one. Always make sure you use the primer, otherwise it may give you a disastrous result. I always check the fit to make sure I have the right size fittings. Sometimes 1 1/4 and 1 1/2 look very similar. So check that fit before you start putting the glue on here. You can see me swirling around with a primer, go around several times, make sure you have it coated pretty good. And I'm going to coat the inside and the outside, both sides of what I'm putting together. I want both of those primed and cleaned up for me. Now as I go to put the glue, you see me shaking off the excess and kind of wiping that. I'm going to swirl that around in there, but I don't want to get any globs of glue. This stuff actually kind of melts the PVC, and if you get a little glob somewhere, it can really weaken the PVC in that one spot. And if you get it under pressure, that's where it's going to blow. So make sure you swirl that around. Don't leave any globs on there. And then when I put the two pieces together, you see me spinning that? What that does is that will really smear that glue around and keep you from having any air pockets, any missed places. So make sure you give it a little spin. Now I'm going to use this cap on the end of this. There's some people that have tried using clean out valves and things of that nature, but I understand that these can generate around 60 psi. Now I don't have a pressure valve on mine, so I can't confirm or deny that. But the one thing the ram does do, it creates a hammer effect, and it does that by building up pressure in this chamber. So my recommendation is don't go that route. Go ahead and put a cap on the top of it so that you don't lose any of that pressure. On the bottom side of mine, I put a screw down on that end with pipe tape. And so if you need to clean it out or do anything, you can always clean it out from down there by unscrewing the pressure chamber. Once again, using those same gluing techniques, swirl that around in there, make sure you don't leave any globs. Once again, give it that twist. A lot of people say a quarter turn. I go a little more than that. I don't think it hurts anything. And I just want to make sure I've got it really smeared around. Now I got it capped. And this is the end I'm going to put the tube in. Now I'm getting a child's bicycle inner tube here. And one of the things that happens by putting it in the air chamber, when you start compressing water and air together, the air molecules can dissolve into the water, and your tank here can become waterlogged. By putting the air inside the inner tube, it just keeps the water and air separate for a longer period of time, and you can go 3 months or so before you ever have to take this out and open it up and make sure it's not waterlogged. I put the valve stem on the bottom, that way I have easy access if I ever need to refill this at some point if it does become waterlogged. And I'm going to put just enough air in there just to kind of fill the pump up, the tube up. I don't want to overinflate it because I do need to be able to compress that. And then once I have that on, I'm going to put the cap back on it so that I don't get any water inside the tube, and I'm good.
Okay, and that takes care of the build of the hydraulic ram pump. And let me show you a couple of quick features that you want to do if you decide you want to build one of these, and then we'll go start seeing if we can pump some water with it. Now, on this intake side down here, you want to make sure that you have a cutoff valve, so that if for any reason you need to take it apart, you need to do something, and you don't want to be squirted down with water, especially if it's not in the dead of summer, you want this valve so that you can turn this water off. This first check valve here, the orientation of the flapper when gravity is going to make it fall this way. Okay, that way when the water pressure comes in here and starts pushing up out of this valve, it'll shut the valve off and then push the pressure in this direction. So make sure that your flapper valve right there operates in this order. Now, some people will put an inline PVC valve here. I went ahead and went with all brass. I think it'll last a lot longer that way. This thing runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, at about 60 cycles a minute. So I wanted to something a little more substantial. Now, on this particular valve, you want it to open up when water pressure comes this direction, and then when the inner tube rebounds and forces the water down here to this T, it's going to go both directions here. Well, I want this flapper valve oriented like this, so when the pressure comes back this way, it shuts this valve off. So my orientation on that one is for it to flap in this direction. Once that happens, all this compressed water that's being pushed down can't go this way any longer and is forced out this direction. Once again, we want to build up some pressure when we first start, so we want a cutoff valve on the output side as well. Now, you don't have to put a bicycle inner tube in here, and there are some other mechanisms that let it suck in air, but you know, down on the farm and where I'm going to be at, I'll be checking this thing periodically, and so but I went ahead and put a bicycle inner tube in there. The reason for that is when you start compressing the air with water, some of the air molecules will dissolve into the water, and over a period of time the water level in this will rise, and it just doesn't give you the compression and it doesn't work. Having the air inside that bicycle inner tube keeps the air and water from mixing quite as much. It will still eventually get waterlogged, so you'll notice I put the water valve down here on the screw end, not the cap end up there. That way I can come back and unscrew this every couple of months, drain any water that's in there out, refill that tube with a little bit of air, and won't be waterlogged any longer. And then I also put these unions here, right here and right here on the end. That way I can come in here and unscrew this union and unscrew this union and take the center part out in the event a small minnow gets in past my screen, trash, leaves, debris, anything like that. If I need to come in here and clean this out, I can unscrew it right here. And you'll also notice I put the part of the union that's going to come out on this side, so that once I unscrew this, all this center part here will come out. So those are a couple of the little tricks of the trade, you know, that you want to do. And once again, the orientation for your valves and your pressure chamber is going to be vertical on that. Okay, that does it for this part of the tutorial. Now it's time to go see if this thing will work. Okay, I came over here yesterday afternoon when I got through putting the ram pump together, and I brought my sections of PVC pipe and found this little pool right in here. And I did not really try to dam this up too bad. I just put a few rocks across there and put the pipe in right there. And as you can see, the water is really flowing through real good right there. But the pipe is submerged, and I've got, you know, pretty good little flow coming down from there. And so I ran the pipe, you know, downhill a little ways. It goes over a couple of little drops. And let me walk down here and show you the output that I'm already getting. Okay, that's the end of my pipe where I'm going to connect the ram pump. And if I zoom in here, with that makeshift dam, I'm getting a really good flow out of that pipe. I think that's probably enough to run the ram pump without even modifying the dam much more than I've already got. That is really squirting out of there. All right, let's connect that ram pump and see if that's gonna do the trick. And then somewhere up that hill there are my trees. I gotta get the garden hose up through there somehow, but that's the next challenge. All right, here's the next challenge. With this water flowing through this pipe so quickly, how do I connect this without getting completely wet? Well, that's where these couplings come in. I'll unscrew that, try to attach that while this is still open, then I'll shut off this valve, and then hopefully I can screw this part back in without taking a shower. Luckily it's going to be in the 70s today, and it won't be that bad if I do. But anyway, got to take one shower a week anyway, regardless, right? Wow, that's got pressure in it already. I'll take you down there in a minute to take a look at it. I'm gonna let it build up for a second. Let me grab the garden hose. Apparently my black pipe just had the male ends on both sides, so experiment one. Will it work with the garden hose without any stiff pipe on the output side? That'll be our first experiment, and we'll find out if that works now. Okay, I've got the ram pump pumping right now, building up some pressure. I've got the valve on the delivery side cracked open just a little bit. I don't have a pressure gauge, so I'm having to go by feel on this. What I'm going to try to do to speed things up, I brought a, it's only about half a gallon, but I thought I'd go ahead and fill in the hose that I've run down through here. And I've got going up on the side, and then I've got an old logging road up over this direction going back up towards the house. I'm just going to kind of follow up that logging road and cut through the woods. Probably 300 feet of hose thereabout. That was 100 feet of hose I just put on there. So let me see if I can get that first 100-foot primed up with the old trusty milk jug, and the valve being cracked just a little bit here, and then I'll try to open it up a little bit more. All right, let me go do that and we'll see what happens. Okay, I've come up to where my hose is run to, and I'm going to fill some of this back up with water to try to build some back pressure down there. Looks like I've already got plenty of head pressure. Wow, I was surprised by that. I'm on my lunch hour, so this is going to be the last of what I have to do, and got to go back and work on some more reports. But I wanted to kind of get it started at lunch, so maybe this evening or tomorrow I can actually start getting some water. I can hear it filling up now. There we go. And I've only got the, I cracked it open a little bit more before I came up here. So it's not fully open down on the output side. I can see a little trickle right there, and it's not open much, and the pump was still working even with that little bit of relief pressure. I've got a steady drip. I've got it going right now. I don't know if you can run it off my finger. Wow, I'm already getting some flow. This is very promising. All right, let's go down there and crack it open all the way, and then we'll call it good for now. And then after I get through turkey hunting, or in the morning, I'll finish running the hose up to the house and really see what we've got. Cool. Now that I'm up out of the creek and getting a little further uphill, you can see that's the logging road that I was talking about, and my house should be right up through there. So another 150 feet back up through that section, and I believe I'll be home free. By George, I believe this is going to work. Let's go crack this thing open, run it on full speed. All right, it looks like it's still going. Let's see if we can open the throttle a little bit more. It's still running. Another crack. Full power, Rudolph. Okay, I'm wide open on both valves. Ram pump is still working, so I believe that's a good sign, boys and girls. That's kind of neat where I've got this tree right there, because you want to make sure this is vertical to get the most efficiency out of this. And any of my waste is going right back into the creek. My neighbor, this goes on across the property line down here a little bit, and my neighbor has a lake on the other side, so we won't lose any water. And I'll be able to tie that off, and that'll keep that vertical and very solid. I don't see the hose jumping. I may not need that little piece of black pipe after all. Might be able to use it on my other one. All right, let's go check the output. And if that's good, finish running the hose and I'm in business. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? That is amazing. Pumping water uphill through a garden hose with no electricity. Wow. And it's a 1/2 inch to 1/2 inch, so the same size diameter apparently will work. Question is, will it get it up the rest of the way up this hill to the house? That's the next part of the equation. But alas, my lunchtime is over. Back to work, and we'll see how this works when I get off. Okay, that's the ram pump at 200 feet. I did run it all the way up there, but I had a terrace right in there. Then it went up to another terrace right in there, and then up to a 55-gallon barrel. So the 1/2 inch to 1/2 inch, just with this elevation gain, I had the hose at 325 feet, and it did not want to push it that far. So what I did, I just gradually started taking hose off to find out what the capabilities were of a 1/2 inch to 1/2 inch, and I probably gained at least that much, if not, more elevation. And so this is a garden hose with no galvanized or steel pipe on the output side, running up a substantial, I'd probably say 20 to 25 feet gain in elevation. Came up out of the creek 6 to 8 feet. I've come up over 2 4-foot terraces and still riding uphill. So that's got to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 feet gain in elevation. It is just a constant little drip, drip, drip. But I went ahead and moved a bucket down here, a 5-gallon bucket here, last night about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the dark. And then I went out hunting. It's been about 12 hours and it's overflowing. So I don't know how much I got in a 12-hour period. I know I'd get at least 10 gallons as a minimum in a 24-hour period. So probably not quite enough to satisfy my needs on the tree. So when I go to town today, I'm going to get some 3/4 inch check valves and see what happens if I go 3/4 down to half, if that gives it enough pressure to push it up here. So first part of the experiment, will a 1/2 inch to 1/2 inch pump water? Yes, it will. How far will it pump it? About 200 feet, but not real fast. And it will pump with a garden hose as your output, without having real hardened pipe. Not only that, this garden hose is 3/4 inch, so I went up from 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch. So learned a few things on this trip. And so next time, next video, I'm going to try a 3/4 inch to 1/2 inch and see what the capabilities are on that. But for now, it's a sort of win. Anyway, so time for the next experiment. But that's going to do it for this one in this video. I'll see all you turkeys on the next one.